His hand was already under her skirt when she started to beg him to stop. Her breath hitched, sharp, and panicked. The black fabric of her habit was bunched in his fist. Her bare thigh was warm against his knuckles. It ripped. "You didn't honor purity." Then he saw the blood. Her voice cracked on the word purity. Half prayer, half accusation. Out here on the empty plains, it sounded like a confession no one should hear. Jacob Callahan froze. Dust stung his eyes. Sweat rolled down his spine. From a distance, it would have looked exactly like sin. A rancher on his knees between the legs of a nun. His head bent low, her skirts hiked high. Her body shuddering in the yellow Cimarron heat. If anyone rode up right now, there would be no explaining it. He forced himself to breathe. Slow, steady. His hand was trapped between torn cloth and trembling skin. Fingers pressed just above the jagged cut that ran across her calf. Blood seeped through the shredded habit and down into the dust. "You tear this cloth anymore and she loses the leg. You stop now and she might lose her life." He swallowed hard and kept his eyes on the wound. Not on the pale skin above it. Not on the way her hip jerked when the cloth pulled. He had seen men gutted in war, but he had never felt this kind of shame burrow into his chest. "Listen to me, sister. If I don't get this fabric loose, it will rip you open worse when you try to stand." Her fingers clawed at the dirt. Her rosary beads clink-ticked softly against the barrel she had landed on. Only then did his mind catch up with what his eyes had seen when he first found her. A broken trail, a shattered wheel scar in the dust, wood splinters, an overturned barrel that had clearly fallen from a passing coach, and her sister, Elena Maris, thrown like cargo into the side of the Cimarron cutoff, hours from Dodge City. Alone in the full burn of the summer sun, he had ridden up thinking she was dead. Then he saw the small rise and fall of her chest. He saw the blood on her leg. He saw the way the black cloth had fused to the torn flesh. So he had dropped to his knees, drawn his knife, pushed up her skirt, just enough to slide the blade between cloth and skin. The fabric fought him, stuck and dried in blood, until one hard pull made it give with a brutal sound. Rip. That was when she woke and accused him with those wild, frightened eyes. It ripped. "You didn't honor purity." Jacob pulled his hand back at last, fingers slick with her blood, heart pounding like a guilty man caught in the act. On this empty stretch of trail, in the summer of 1885, with no witnesses but God and the circling buzzards, what story would this land choose to tell about what he had just done to a fallen nun? Jacob didn't answer the land. He answered the way any old soldier does when trouble looks him in the eye. He wiped her blood on his pant leg, slid the knife back into its sheath, and forced his voice to stay calm. "All right, sister, we are getting you out of this." He could have turned his horse and pretended he had never seen her, and no one on this earth would have called him a coward. He slipped an arm under her shoulders, her head lulled against his chest, light as a child's. But every time he moved her leg, she gasped and grabbed his shirt. "Please don't touch me there." He almost laughed, not because it was funny, but because if he didn't, he might start cussing at the sky. I am 50 miles from decent help, and you're bleeding through holy cloth. If I wanted to dishonor you, I would not have bothered to save you." Her fingers loosened just a little, enough for him to lift her. He carried her to his horse, muscles burning, the Cimarron sun pounding on the back of his neck. He had hauled calves out of mud holes and drunk cowboys out of ditches, but a wounded nun whose skirt kept sliding just high enough to show more than any church woman ever should. That was a new kind of trial. He settled her sideways in the saddle, one arm around her to hold her steady, her cheek against his chest. He could feel every shiver, every shallow breath, every quiet little prayer she whispered as the horse started toward Dodge City. By the time the town rose out of the heat, the story already looked bad enough to hang him. A middle-aged rancher, coat dusty, jaw dark with stubble, a young woman in black slumped against him, habit torn wide along one leg, bare skin streaked with dirt. From the boardwalks, people turned to stare. Of course they did. Be honest. If you had seen them ride in like that, what story would your mind have written? Jacob felt their eyes as sharp as rifle sights. He guided the horse straight to the livery, then to the doctor, snapping short answers before anyone could open their mouths too wide. Found her out on the trail. Stagecoach sign in the dirt. No driver, no passengers, just her. Inside the small office that smelled of whiskey and carbolic, the town doctor cleaned the cut and wrapped her leg. He called it a miracle she had not bled out. While he worked, Sister Elena watched Jacob from the table, her brow furrowed. Diaz, if she could not quite decide if he was her rescuer or just the first man who got caught. Word moved faster than a prairie fire. By sundown, the Longhorn Saloon was buzzing. Some said Jacob Callahan had dragged a half-naked nun into town. Some said he had found her that way and refused to say what he had seen. Everybody agreed on one thing. A woman of God, with a ripped habit at a lonely ranch, made one hell of a story. In the far corner of the saloon, over a cheap bottle of rye, two dusty strangers listened to every word. And when they heard the part about the nun, they smiled like men who had just been handed a second chance at easy money. The two dusty men in the corner were not strangers at all. Not to Sister Elena. Not to the broken barrel out on the Cimarron cut off. Cole Maddox tipped his glass and grinned when he heard the stable boy say the words, "Nun ripped dress found near a busted-up trail mark." "That is her," Cole said low enough that only his partner heard. Jeb Coulter set his drink down a little too hard. "I watched her roll off that road like a sack of flour. Cole, she should be buzzard bones by now." "Well, look at that," Cole answered. "Mercy rides a horse and wears a big hat in Dodge City. Callahan, I know that name. Old soldier. Got himself a ranch west of town." He smiled without much humor. "If the law ever comes asking about that stagecoach, that little sister's our only tongue that can ruin us. We go get her back." They were not talking about a rescue. They were talking about cleaning up their own sins before the law heard about them. While they planned over cheap whiskey, Jacob was already riding away from town, with Sister Elena slumped in front of them again. The doctor had argued for a cot in the back room. The boarding house lady had taken one look at the torn habit and crossed herself 3 times. "No spare room for trouble, mister." So Jacob did the only thing that felt right. He brought her home. Callahan Ranch sat in a shallow valley of dry grass and stubborn cottonwoods. A small house with tired white paint. A barn leaning just a little. A corral full of dust and fence posts. It was not much, but it was his. He carried her inside and laid her on the bed that had once belonged to his wife. The room smelled faintly of old soap and cedar. A faded dress still hung on a peg. He caught Elena staring at it. "I will sleep in the chair," he said quickly. "Door stays open. You have my word." She nodded, fingers clutching the blanket to her throat. "I don't doubt your word, Mr. Callahan. I just don't understand why you would risk your good name for a woman folks already judge." He gave a tired half-smile. "Ma, folks around here have been judging me since the war. Let them talk. I would rather they gossip than carve your name on a wooden cross out on the trail." Outside evening settled soft over the ranch. Inside, the old clock on the mantel ticked steady. For the first time in years, Jacob heard another voice in his house, a soft prayer in Latin drifting down the hallway as the nun tried to thank a God who let her live. Out beyond the last fence post, 2 riders watched from a rise, their silhouettes just part of the darkening sky. Cole spat in the dirt. "There it is, Jeb. Callahan Ranch we ride in tomorrow, nice and friendly, and we take back what that trail tried to steal from us. Now let me ask you this. If you were alone on that ranch when those two men rode in, what would you do? If you're still here, take a breath, sip your coffee or tea, and stay with this story. If you want more tales like this, you can subscribe so you don't miss the next part. And while you listen, tell me in the comments what time it is for you right now and where in the world you're listening from." Morning came early at Callahan Ranch. So did trouble. Jacob was out in the yard pitching hay into the corral when he saw two riders coming slow along the fence line. They moved like men who were not in a hurry to buy cattle, more like men counting windows and doors. Sister Elena watched from the porch, one hand on the frame to steady herself. Her legs still ached, but the bandage was clean. She wore the same black habit, now stitched and washed, though the rip along the side was still faintly visible if you knew where to look. Those men from the road. Her voice was quiet. The ones who robbed the coach. Jacob squinted into the light. Could be. They have that look like they never paid for anything they own. Cole Maddox raised a hand in greeting, all friendly grin and tobacco-stained teeth. "Morning, neighbor. Name is Cole. My friend here is Jeb. We're riding through looking for a lost companion." He tipped his hat toward Elena. "Little thing in black belongs to the church. Fell off a coach out on the Cimarron. You have not seen anybody like that. Have you?" Jacob felt the air change. He could taste the lie. He planted the hay fork in the dirt and walked closer to the porch, putting himself between them and the nun. Found a woman on the trail a day back. He said stagecoach sign in the dust. No driver, no other bodies. Just her and the busted barrel. If she was with you, you left her for dead. Jeb shifted in his saddle, eyes darting from Jacob to Elena. Cole just smiled wider. "You know how it is out here, your friend. Things happen fast. Sometimes folks fall behind. We just came to collect what is ours." Elena stepped down onto the top stair, knuckles wide on the railing. "I'm not yours," she said. "You robbed those people. You meant to sell me for a heartbeat." All the polite air blew away. Cold hate slid into Cole Maddox's eyes. Then it was gone, covered with a shrug and a lazy chuckle. "Seems the lady has a lively imagination. We will be back in town if she changes her mind." They turned their horses and rode off. But Jacob knew. Men like that didn't give up easy. They circled. They waited. The rest of the day moved in slow, careful pieces. Elena insisted on helping in the kitchen, even though she limped. She stood by the window, sewing the last weak spots in her habit. The afternoon light tracing the line of her jaw, the bruise on her arm where the barrel had hit. "Why did you leave your old life, Mr. Callahan?" She asked it while her needle moved, eyes on the cloth instead of his face. He poured coffee into 2 chip mugs. "Lost my wife to fever. Lost my boys before that. Army took the best parts of me. The graveyards took the rest. Out here it is just me and the cattle and whatever God has not taken yet." She looked up then, and there was something soft and dangerous in her gaze. "You saved me when the road tried to claim me. Maybe God left you that." Her words settled heavy between them. He felt the pull in his chest, that old ache he had buried with his family. He also felt the weight of the black cloth she wore and the vows tied to every stitch. One wrong step now and he would not just break her heart. He would break the only promise she had left in this world. Outside, the sky darkened to the color of a bruise. Somewhere beyond the last rise, 2 men were planning how to come back without smiling this time. When the shooting finally started at Callahan Ranch, it wasn't the cattle or the house they were after. It was the woman who had dared to say she wasn't theirs. The first shot cracked the evening open like dry wood. Jacob was halfway to the barn when a bullet chewed splinters out of the door frame beside his head. "Get down, sister." He didn't have to say it twice. Sister Elena dropped behind the heavy table, rosary clutched in one hand, the other pressed to her bandaged leg. Through the window, she saw Cole and Jeb using the water trough for cover. Gunham smoke curling around their hats. "Come on out, Callahan," Cole called. "We just want what belongs to us," Jacob answered with his rifle. The shot slammed into the trough, water spraying. Jeb cursed and ducked. "This is my land, my house. You already left one good woman in the dirt. You're not taking another." Elena felt every word in her bones. She knew what staying hidden would mean for her. No more whispers, no more shame. Just the safe walls of a mission far away. She also knew what it would mean if Jacob fell in that yard. A man who had already buried too much would die trying to protect her while she crouched behind a chair. That thought hurt worse than the cut on her leg. She grabbed the oil lamp from the shelf and limped toward the doorway. Jacob turned, eyes wide. "Get back, sister." "No, you didn't leave me on that road. I will not leave you in this yard." She stepped onto the porch, lamp held high. The sudden light caught Cole in the eyes just as he stood to aim. He flinched, shot going wild. Jacob fired in that split second of blind surprise. The bullet tore into Cole's shoulder and spun him into the dirt. Jeb dropped his gun and threw up his hands. Sheriff riders were already pounding up the lane, drawn by the noise. By the time the dust settled, Cole and Jeb were in irons and Callahan Ranch was quiet again. A few days later, Father Patrick came with news. A wagon was headed to Santa Fe. The mission still needed Sister Elena. The church would take her. The town would be glad to see the story and clean. At the gate, Jacob helped her up into the wagon. Her habit was whole now, her legs still stiff but healing. She looked down at him and spoke soft enough that only he heard. It ripped that day. "Jacob, my habit, my certainty. But you never touched what wasn't yours to take." He smiled, tired but honest. "You walked through fire and kept your soul. That is your doing, not mine." As the wagon rolled away toward Santa Fe, both of them knew they loved each other in a way that could not live under the same roof. Sometimes honoring love means letting it stay untouched. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is protect someone, then step back and let them walk their own road. So, let me ask you, have you ever had to let go of someone for their sake, even when your heart wanted to hold on to them harder than ever? If this story gave you something to think about, tap like so more people can find it. If you want to hear more forgotten tales from the Old West, you can subscribe and ride along with the next story. While you listen, pour yourself a quiet cup of coffee or tea. Take a breath and tell me in the comments what time it is for you right now and where in the world you're listening.